Hello and welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is my review of the Tier 8 German heavy tank, the Bengal Tiger. Rawr! Also known as the King Tiger, and in-game it's called the Tiger 2. So is it any good? Well, in my opinion, this is the epitome of the average heavy tank. Now the reason I say average is because there is nothing that this tank is the best at. And there's nothing that this tank is the worst at. In fact, if you look at its stats, it's pretty much average in every department, and it's an average tank. I think probably once upon a time when World of Tanks was first released, this tank would have been one of the top tanks at Tier 8. It would have been a kick-ass tank. But with the introduction of all of the high penetration tank destroyers at Tier 8 and Tier 9s and Tier 10s especially, really the tanks become pretty average. And when you think of it, it's fair enough. I mean, this is a World War II tank and was an iconic tank in World War II, but now it's up against a lot of tanks, even medium tanks, that are really post-war tanks from the 1950s and 60s even. So it's not surprising it doesn't compete as well against those sort of tanks. For example, a Type 59 can pull up next to you, and because you're higher than it, the only thing you can shoot is its turret, and you're never going to penetrate its turret, and it just sits there and shoots you. There's nothing you can do. So, you know, against modern tanks, it's not really fair, is it? Alright, so let's get into the review. It has 1,600 hit points, which is actually the second best. The best is the KV4 with 1,650, and the lowest goes to the AMX 5100 with 1,400 hit points. The weight of this tank, it's also fairly heavy. It comes in at 71 tons, which obviously isn't as heavy as the KV4. That's 107 tons, but it's heavier than all of the other Tier 8 heavies, so you can feel free to ram other tanks quite confidently. The IS-3, for example, only weighs 49 tons, so that is a good tank to ram if you get into close quarters confrontation with it. Speed-wise, the tank does 38 kilometers an hour in forward and 12 kilometers an hour in reverse, which is probably on the lower side of average for a Tier 8 heavy, but it's adequate, although it's not. Apparently quite a few patches away it had a better engine, but they took that away and it doesn't accelerate very well, and it's not that good up hills, but it's adequate. The traverse of this tank is a 28, which is smack on average traverse, and the turret traverse is also 28, which is also smack on average. So it has trouble dealing with medium tanks at close range, but deals okay with heavy tanks at close range in that respect. The view range of 390 is average, and the signal range of 740 is on the lower side of average, but it's fine. It's plenty adequate, no problem there. Camouflage wise, the tank is pretty poor, but then again, most of the Tier 8 heavies are, and this is on the lower side of average. The KV4 is of course way worse. But this Tiger's, it's not good camouflage. It's a pretty big tank. Now, as far as gun depression goes, the tank actually has very good gun depression of -8 degrees. And that really is of great benefit in this tank, and is unusual for German tanks too. The best gun depression goes to the American T-32 with 10 degrees, and the Carnarvon British tank also has 10 degrees of gun depression. The elevation on this tank is only 15 degrees and isn't great. I didn't find myself getting into trouble with it too often though. Let's have a quick look at the grind for the tank. Now, the tracks take the traverse from 26 to 28, which is of course handy. The engine power doesn't improve much from the stock engine to the top engine. It only goes up 50, which isn't a great deal. It doesn't make much difference. The top radio, I think I was able to go straight to the top radio because of previous tanks researched. Now the gun, it is actually a pretty painless grind because the stock gun is actually very good. Probably the most important upgrade when you first get this tank is the turret. As you can see, the stock turret only has 100mm of armor on the front, whereas the upgrade turret goes to 185mm of armor. So you survive a lot longer with the upgraded turret, and the gun, like I say, the stock gun is actually pretty good. So in my view, get the turret as your first upgrade if you can, if the tracks allow you to do it, but get it as soon as possible anyway. So I'll just have a quick look at the guns here. And we can see that the first gun you get, the stock gun, isn't a bad gun. It has 203 mils of penetration, which at tier 8 is fine. It works well at tier 8 even, and tier 10, well, you know, okay, you got to shoot for weak spots, but it's still not too bad. And it has an 8.96 rate of fire, which is great for a tier 8 heavy. That's fantastic. And it does damage of 240, which, while that's more sort of medium tank damage, it's still at least pretty good. It has a 0.34 accuracy, which is really good, and it has a 2.3 second aiming time, which is also really good. So you can have good games with this gun, and there's even an argument that at tier 8, this gun can be more effective than the top gun simply because of its high rate of fire. The second gun, if you look here, I never bought it because the top gun is superior in every aspect except aiming time, and I just thought I'm not going to spend the, how much is it? 116,000 credits when the top gun is just better. So I just kept grinding until I got the top gun. So to give you an idea, both guns have a 5.77 rate of fire. This earlier gun has a 200 pen versus a 225 pen on the top gun, which is, by the way, is quite good penetration. It's sort of average, I guess, for a tier 8, but it's pretty good. They both do 320 damage, which is also about average for a tier 8 heavy. But this earlier gun has a 0.37 accuracy, and that's the killer. That's why I didn't bother getting it. Versus the 0.34 accuracy of the top gun, which is very good accuracy. The aiming time is better on this earlier gun though, 2.3 versus 2.5, but it wasn't enough to make me bother getting this gun, so I never actually got it. Let's do a quick comparison now of tier 8 guns. So here we have, starting at the top left, the Chinese gun, under that's the Russians, then we've got the British here, and underneath them is the Americans, and we have the French, which is an autoloader, and the German gun is just over here. So comparing rate of fire, we can see that with 5.77, we are faster reloading than the Americans and the Russians, although the Russian gun obviously does a hell of a lot of damage. But we're slower than the Chinese, the Brits, and of course the French have an autoloader. So we're about average as far as rate of fire goes. Penetration-wise, with 225 pen, it's much better than the American at 198, and it's identical to the Russians, pretty much identical to the Brits, and a bit more than the Chinese, and a bit less than the French with 232. So, about average. The damage of 320 is identical to the Americans, less than the Russians, but then again everybody's less than the Russians. It's also identical to the Chinese, is more than the Brits, everybody's more than the Brits, and is less than the, is slightly more than the French, but it is an autoloader. So, pretty much average damage. Accuracy of 0.34 though is pretty darn good, and it's much better than the Americans, much better than the Russians, and is also much better than the Chinese at 0.38, but not quite as good as the Brits at 0.32, but then again they do low damage of 230, and is a little bit better than the French at 0.36. So you can see that, okay, I'd say accuracy, we're probably we're on the upper side of average, but it's good. It's good, but it's not fantastic compared to the others. The aiming time of 2.5 is not as good as the Americans at 2.3, but it's not far off. Far better than the Russians at 3.4. Also better than the Chinese at 2.9. Not as good as the Brits at 1.9, which is insane, but it is a low damage gun. And is better than the French. So we could say we're probably on the upper side of average there, but still not the best. So you can see the gun isn't better than everybody else at anything. It's not worst at anything either, which is another reason why I say this tank is an average tank. So there you go. I will get into the intricacies of the armor and how to play this tank a little bit better in Tank Inspector. For the gameplay, you can see my crew is 100% trained, and the commander has mentor and is currently working on repairs. The gunner has snapshot and is currently working on repairs. The driver here has off-road driving and is currently working on smooth ride. The whatever this guy is, radio operator, has situational awareness and is currently working on repairs. And the last guy here has camouflage and is currently working on repairs, the loader. I have binoculars, camouflage net, and gun ram fitted. Not necessarily the best makeup, but that's what I've got. I have small repair kit, fire extinguisher, and large first aid kit. I have the fire extinguisher fitted because German tanks are famous for catching fire from hits to the lower plate, and this does indeed catch fire from hits to the lower plate. However, this is patch 9.2 currently. Patch 9.3 is about to come out, and they are making it that tier 8 and above tanks that are hit frontally, are set on fire frontally from hits to the transmission, will no longer catch fire from hits to the transmission from frontal shots. Hallelujah! German tank drivers rejoice. So I will be changing that to a large repair kit when that happens. Let's get into some gameplay. Oh, Tank Inspector and then some gameplay. The Tiger II in Tank Inspector. Let's go straight to the colorized view. We can see that the lower plate is 100mm and is typical of German tanks. The lower plate is a weakness. Even though it is heavily sloped, 100mm just isn't thick enough. From front on, even tier 6 heavies are able to pen it. However, angled, it's a little harder to pen, and you can stop most of those tier 6 heavies with angling. However, the side of the tank is only 80mm thick, and you do have to be very careful with angling this tank. You can't really angle more than about 25 degrees. If I go sort of there, we're starting to get the front of the tank there now a little bit too much, and now you can see it's only 159 at the front. So you can't angle this tank too much. The upper plate is 150mm thick, which is pretty darn good. In the old days, this machine gun port was a weakness, but they eliminated that a few patches ago because these tanks were getting slaughtered. They had nothing. Even if they covered their lower plate, everyone just pinged the machine gun port. So they've removed that weakness now, and it is a consistent 150mm right across the whole front plate. Now, against tier 8 tanks, which all have, except with the American tanks, all have over 200mm of penetration, you have to angle the front of the tank to stop tier 8s from penetrating you. Now that opens up the side of your tank, so you can't angle it too much. The lower plate though can still be penetrated whilst you're stopping the tier 6s penetrating it. Now it can still be penetrated by tier 8s, so you really need to keep the lower plate covered either by rubble or by a hill, and angle as well. Then you can bounce shots off the upper plate and the side of your tank. If you angle too much, they'll pen the side, the 80mm side. Now the rear of the tank is also 80mm, which is pretty good for the rear of a tank. Going on to the turret now, the frontal plate of the turret, and this is the upgraded turret, do definitely get the upgraded turret. The front here is 185mm, which sounds awesome, but it's very flat. So 185mm, we don't get any more than 185mm out of it, or 187 it goes up to. Remembering tier 8 tanks, with the exception of the Americans, all have more than 200mm of penetration. They can all punch a hole through the front of your turret. That's a real problem. So even going hull down, protecting your lower plate, okay, great, and we've angled it, okay, great, but our turret's going to get pinned anyway. It'll stop tiers 7s and 6s pretty consistently, but it has trouble with tier 8s. Now, I know what you're thinking, what if we angle our turret? Well, unfortunately and fortunately. Fortunately, the sides of the turrets are very heavily angled, and which is good because they're only 80mm thick, but from front on shots, even 120mm guns will just ricochet off it, which is great. However, what it means is if we angle it to protect the front of our turret, the side becomes an easy pen at only, say, 113mm, for example, from this angle. So if we get it, let's see, there's our ricochet angle for the side of our tank, about 25 degrees. It's pen time for the side of the turret because of this angling on it. So you pretty much have to just keep your gun pointed at your enemies. The mantlet's very tough because it's overlaid spaced armor, which is great. Now, the other major weakness is the top of the tank. So even hull down, it's not strong. It's only 40mm thick on the roof of the tank. This means that 120mm guns, such as the Tier 8 IS-3, will auto-pen you because the caliber of the gun is 3 times higher than the value of the armor. So, whilst a less than 120mm gun, such as, let's just take this down to, it says 107 there, it'll ricochet. So all of the Tier 8 heavies except for the IS-3 will ricochet off that. But you've got to watch the IS-3 because it won't, it'll auto-pen you. But every Tier 8 and above heavy tank has access to a 120mm gun or greater. So every Tier 8 and Tier 9 tank can auto-pen you through the top of the tank, and they do. except for the ones that don't need to. They just put it straight through your hull, the higher level tanks as well. So just finishing off, the top deck is 40mm, as is the top of the turret, which look, yeah, it's okay. The cupola is at least stronger and is pretty small. People don't generally bother shooting your cupola because they don't need to. So basically the armor holds up okay at tier 8, but it's a failure at tier 9 and tier 10, making this tank difficult to brawl in at those tiers. That said, at long range, it's a different story because people start to lose their penetration ability at long range, and the accuracy to hit the top of the tank also suffers at long range. So wiki tanks and a lot of people suggest to use this as a sniper. I just felt really bad using this as a sniper because if you're like the top tier and there's only 1 or 2 heavies, everybody's expecting you to lead the push, and if you don't, your team kind of suffers because you need armor to allow the other tanks to do their job. So it's kind of, you're caught in a tough spot, and yeah, I just couldn't use this as a sniper. I ended up brawling with it, which is probably why the best I could get in this tank was a class 1. And my damage ratio is 0.99, isn't good. My kill ratio is about 1.3, not good. I lost my first 9 games straight in this tank, winning my 10th game, even though I was getting high calibers and stuff, and the stock gun is pretty good. And I didn't win another game till my 23rd game in a tank. So my win rate was 4.5%. It's now about 44% or something, but still not great. So yeah, an average tank in my book, but I'm sure there are people making it work.
Time to roll out.
The map is Cliff. We're in our tier 8 Tiger tank. It's a tier 8 match. There's only about 5 tier 8s on the enemy team. And there's some 6s and stuff like that, 7s and 6s. So I'm going to take a brawling position since the armor does hold up fairly well at tier 8. I might just speed this up a little bit. Now, I do something very naughty in this game, and just to set it up, 2 games ago before this, I had a teammate who, I'll speak up to you now, had a teammate who, for no reason, pushed me out in front of the enemy. Then I managed to get back in. I got hit, but I managed to get back in. I didn't do anything, I just left him alone. I thought, okay, whatever. Went back to the position I was in before, and he pushed me out in front of the enemy again, and I got killed. Yeah. So, everybody knows, everybody's had it happen to him, I'm sure. But, yeah, I'm trying to justify what you're going to see in a minute. Basically. Alright, so we can see we're getting spotted up there by the AMX, who's doing a good scouting job for the enemy team. I'm just going to speed this up to 2 times because, as you can see, the tank isn't fast. I'm a bit worried about getting hit by artillery while these tanks are spotting us. Hence why I'm sort of hanging around here a little bit first. And now I see another, also there was no other tanks but me coming up here. I'm going to slow down to normal speed now, and I didn't want to be the only tank coming up here. Because like I say, the frontal armor is okay, but the side armor is weak, and if people run around me, if they rush me, I'm gone. So, alright, so he takes a hit, so I move out now to see if I can deal a hit, and we get a hit into that T-150 there, and we bounce one off the Jake Panther because we were quite well angled to the enemy. The only danger with what I was doing there was if they had tracked me, I'd have been in a bit of trouble. So I can see here now there's a Ferdinand. I was going to go and try and track him there, but he managed to pull back behind the rock in time. The teammate, somebody got killed there. I don't know who it was, but I heard the tank blow up. Oh, it's out, yeah. Looks like we had an IS-3 maybe that went out on the right flank there and got killed. He went out too wide. The trouble with going out that wide is you're allowing more than one tank to shoot back at you. You really want to, if possible, only allow one tank to return fire at a time. So we managed to hit the Jake Panther then, but didn't go through. You couldn't see it on the screen there, but I had a shot at him. I think I tried to hit him through the roof and it didn't work. We do get one into the side of the Ferdinand there though, while he's trying to get a better position. The VK that was with us has fallen back a little bit. He's getting hit, but he's out too wide once again, so he's popping hits. Managed to get another one into that 30. So yeah, he was getting hit by multiple tanks there. Now, I get a critical hit from 30, but it doesn't do any damage to me, and I believe it's bounced off my gun. Now, I've been hit in the back by an FV304, and I'm quite concerned about that, but I just get hit now by the Ferdinand for 328, and I get hit again from the rear by the artillery for 124. I'm in a spot of bother here. I've got a T-32 up here helping me. I have to move forward because otherwise artillery is just going to eventually kill me. So I decide I'm just going to have to push and try my luck. Fortunately, that T-32 has helped out a bit and has made the enemy pull back a little bit, and he's also, I think, taken out one of the tanks. He's now taking hits, so I decide to use this tank here for cover and try and shoot through the gap here. Moving forward and back here. The enemy has pulled back, so I decided just to wait for them to come forward and shoot them as they come around the corner. I'm in a really good spot here now that I'm pretty much completely protected. And the T-32 here rams me in the back. I think he wants this spot, and he's very annoyed that I'm in it. We can see that he's pulled back a fair bit now, so it looks like he was just sending me a message, or maybe I bumped him when I was moving in, I'm not sure. So I decided to move out a little bit now to get a better shot. I still want to try and keep the front lower hull of my tank protected by that tank here. And you can see the T-32 now rams me. I thought he was attempting to push me in front of the enemy. But no, he's just trying to get that spot, I think. I don't know. But either way, I almost got shot there. I figure I'm not going to let someone do this to me again. I'm not going to let a teammate get me killed in another game. So I shouldn't have done it. Okay, it's not a good thing to do, but like I say, 2 games ago, a teammate got me killed by deliberately pushing me out in front of the enemy, and I'm sorry, but if you're deliberately trying to ram me, okay, if you accidentally bump me, but you deliberately rammed me twice, trying to get me damaged, well, that's what happens. So anyway, now we're bouncing a few shots because we're well angled to our enemy. We've got a fair bit of cover, and we're not giving them too much of our tank when we take shots. We've got IS here. Now the IS can penetrate the top of our tank with no problems, but he's not really getting the opportunity to. He's also being harassed by our light tank on top of the hill, who has now been destroyed. We managed to get a nice one into him there. So we have a much quicker aiming time than the IS, and he would have trouble aiming at our turret as long as we don't stand in front of him too long. And he gets hit by someone else at the same time for 102. Maybe we have got another light tank up on the top. And we managed to get the final blow. So the only damage I've taken so far is the FV304 has hit me twice, the tier 6 artillery. And the Ferdinand put a good shot into me. You can see there is a mark on top of my turret where someone has hit me. So that someone did aim for the roof of my tank, so it is common knowledge that that's a weak spot. But it hit me too far up on it and has bounced off. Or maybe it was less than a 120mm caliber gun and it bounced. So we're definitely going to win the game now. The only tank remaining is the FV304, and we have 5 of us left. Or two heavy tanks and 3 artillery remaining. I would love to kill that FV304 because he hit me twice, but I don't fancy my chances at this stage of doing that. As you can see, this tank isn't fast for a heavy tank, but it's not super slow anyway. It is average. And, oh, our arty has spotted him. Can I get a shot? There's not much of him showing. I miss. Oh, he kills our FV304, doing his little TD mode, but he's coming the wrong direction. Oh, good. Wasn't sure then he disappeared, but no, we got him. And that's the end of the game. So that was a Class 2 game. I don't have any Mastery class. I did do a Class 1 game in this tank, or a few of them actually, but I haven't got them anymore because they were pre 9.2 and they don't work. But anyway, I still have some not bad games. So it was a Class 2, and we managed to get Steel Wall, which you do get fairly often, get Steel Walls in Tier 8 matches. But you don't really, I don't really last long in anything higher than a Tier 8 match. So we finished on top 4 XP, and well on top for damage on our team, but overall the T-32 on the opposing team actually did more damage with 2-4 versus our 2-3. So we fired 15 shots, 11 of those hit and 9 penetrated. So the penetration of the gun is pretty good, especially at this tier. Damage of 2,332 is pretty good. We received 11 hits, only 5 of those hits penetrated, which is a fantastic result. And like I said, that's not unusual at tier 8 if you're angling your tank well. Damage blocked by armor was 2,305, which is pretty epic considering we only have 1,600 hit points. That's pretty good. Spotted 3, we damaged 4, destroying 3 of those tanks, and we got 450 assistance damage as well. 43,000 income is pretty good, although we did lose 3-odd thousand of it by accidentally damaging our friendly tank. The repair of the vehicle wasn't too bad because we didn't take too much damage. Ammunition is 15,000, which is, yeah, okay, I guess. Pretty typical. So without the fine, we would have made about 23,000. So it's not too bad profit-wise, this tank, for a tier 8 tank. 922 XP was enough for class 2.
Let's go.
The map is Sand River. It's an assault game, so we have to capture the enemy base or kill all their tanks, and we have 10 minutes to do it. Let's go! Anyway, we're driving our tier 8 German Tiger tank, and it's, like I said, tier 8 game. Probably, I think there's only about 5 tier 8s on each team, and a few tier 7s, etc. Now, we have 3 tier 8 heavy tanks and 2 tier 8 tank destroyers. The enemy only has 1 tier 8 heavy and a couple of tier 8 mediums and a couple of tier 8 tank destroyers. In fact, the same tank destroyers that we have. So armor wise, I guess we have more. But I decide to try my hand at sniping, like Wiki Tanks suggests for this tank, and I go up the hill. But I'm not intending on staying on the hill for very long. I just want to get any initial shots from the hill and then move down, move forward and press forward so we can have a chance of capping and winning the game. I'm just going to let it go here so you can see the relative speed of the tank. So if you haven't got this tank and you're wondering what kind of speed it does, you can get a bit of an idea. So uphill, it does struggle, as you can see. And it kind of makes it tough. Because you've got 8 degrees of gun depression, it's kind of tank you'd like to use it on hills. But because it struggles so much uphill, you're kind of like exposing your tank for a pretty long time to get into position to fire before you actually get to fire. So it's a little slow. It's more a case of you're going to use the hills from a long range where you can get into position without actually getting shot at first. So I can see here the SU-100's already started firing. I move in front of him because I know he can shoot over the top of my tank, so I'm not blocking his shots. T-34 exposed there, and we get one into the front of his hull for 295. Hits down near the wheel there. This time I decided I'm going to go for his turret and see if we can ruin his, lock his turret or something. But I think it might have actually gone over the tank because he disappeared before I shot. So now I'm aiming much lower to try and guarantee a hit. So I'm pretty sure that would have gone in if he's still there. I'm just going to keep putting a couple of shots here because he may still be there. I mean, he didn't turn even when he got hit, so he was pretty focused on what he was doing. Oh, T20. Don't quite have a shot. Yeah, here we go. Nice. So 299 is below the average damage of the gun, but still it's alright. He's still there. We should have just kept firing. Oh, we would have killed him if we just kept firing. Oh, that was pretty silly on his part. T69. Oh, I hate those things. Well, when I say hate those things, it's probably a great tank, but they do tear me apart every now and then. No, he moved quite cleverly, stuffing me up. It did look a little bit jerky though, the way he moved, so I'm wondering I might have had a bit of lag there. So I know I said I was going to have a couple of quick shots, but we're actually doing okay here. They're kind of, a lot of them are just moving around, and like this one, they're out in the open. They're making a lot of mistakes. So while they're doing that, and I can do damage from here, I'm going to stay here and do it. So yeah, they keep sticking their tanks up like that. Well, oh, am I going to get a shot? Wow, that bounced off the side of the turret of a T-29. That was a bit unlucky. I don't know what happened there. I think it looked like we hit a bit more of the top than the side, but still, that's better. That's what I would expect to happen. So yeah, we're getting free shots here. They're just exposing themselves to us. So like, what can I do? I can't move while I've got these shots available. Unfortunately, the dead tank is providing him with a bit of protection. It's a KV-1S. I haven't really got a shot. I just shoot anyway in case he decided to move forward. But the T-29's coming out for another hit. It's not often these days you get tanks just moving out in front like that. I also temporarily spotted, for just a second there was another tank to his left. Don't have much going on. That's better. We donk a shot there, even though the accuracy is good on this tank. Yeah, it's not fantastic. .34 is good, but there are better tanks, like the British tanks, that have better accuracy, but it's adequate. But you're not going to hit every shot. No. Okay, so I decide now I'm not going to get much more by staying here, and there's only 5 minutes left, so half our time is gone. It's time to move in and try and press the enemy now. They've got few enough tanks. There's a Tiger 1 down there, and he's actually now asking for help. I was thinking of going just to the left here on this sandy ridge there and shooting from there, because sometimes you can spot tanks further back, get some good shots. But the Tiger 1 asked for help, and I thought, well, yeah, okay, we haven't got a lot of time. Probably is the best thing to do now is just to try and press and take a bit of damage, try and bounce some damage off my armor, and just take a few hits, but press home. We've got to push in. So the T-19 gets the shot in my side, but I didn't want to turn the front of my tank because, as you can see there, I just bounced a T-69 from the front, because there are always tanks hiding up there. So I didn't want to turn the front of my tank at the point of the T-69. Unfortunately, though, I am offering the side of my turret now to the people at the back, so I have to be a little careful. And the T-20 actually manages to get a shot off at me there, but doesn't get me because I think he only had my turret and we were angled, and his gun isn't a high enough caliber to auto pen the roof of my tank, I don't think. We get a good shot into him there, but unfortunately we take a shot from the T-69, which goes into our upper hull, I believe. It looked like that's where it hit, near on the right upper hull there. It looked like it hit around about there near our track, but I can't see a mark. You can see there though where we have been penned, the cupola and the side of the turret. And somebody penned us through the mantlet. Either the T-20 or the T-69, must have been the T-69, penned us through the mantlet. Well, yeah, right. That's bullshit, if you don't mind me saying so. Anyway, that's, he must have had a freaky damage roll. Standard ammunition, AP ammo it says there. Ay caramba, what a shot. Actually, it says that the T-69 got me through the turret, so that must have been T-69 that came there. Anyway, payback. We hit the T-69 with a low damage roll, but I'm glad I hit it. Can we do it again? Okay, so we bounce off his mantlet, but he goes straight through ours. That's fair. We're a heavy tank after all. Crikey. Alright, so I'm sort of exposing my side here a little bit, but I'm trying to get right across so I can use this hill to try and cover my lower plate so that I can shoot back without having to take hits in the lower plate. Although apparently this magic T-69 can bend me anywhere he wants. Straight through my thickest armor. Anyway. So we're moving right along. Now, even though this tank isn't fast, its terrain resistance isn't too bad. I mean, it moves across the sand reasonably well. So it doesn't seem to lose too much across rough terrain or sandy terrain. Now, this may look stupid. I'm actually going up, but I want to try and spot the enemy. Our Tiger 1 is in position to shoot, so I'm going to try and see if I can spot a few of them. If I get a free shot, great. Oh, I want to get a shot on the side of this guy before he gets in the cover. Too late. Damn. That would have been nice to get him in the side, the Super Pershing. He has great frontal armour, but terrible side armour. I will review the Super Pershing. I'm playing it a bit at the moment, and I'll review that at some stage. Now, Tiger 1 is getting good shots into him, so he's doing a good job. Now, so long as we stay away from the strongest part of the nose of the Super Pershing, we should be able to pen it, because we've got a pretty good pen gun here. Now, I do stuff up my first shot. A T-28 hits me from back there, but I did think about shooting him, but I ended up going to the Super Pershing. I luckily penetrate there. I went through the double spaced plated armour there. I was pretty lucky to get that shot in. I also get that one in. It's just good. Got great pen, this gun, but I didn't know what I know about Super Pershings now, and that I didn't really shoot it in the best spot. T69 gets eliminated. Thank you. I now have a shot on the side shot of T28, so I get a bit of payback. Hallelujah. I don't think we've done one shot so far that has actually been over our average. Oh, we've done one shot that's been over our average damage of 320. Every other shot's been below average, but anyway. So I'm trying to get another shot on this T28, but I haven't. I'm trying to get the side of his turret. He gets one into me. Damn. Let's see where that went in. Dang. I can't see. Oh, hang on. He's penned me there in the front of the turret. Yeah, okay. I decide now to move over here, try and get away from the T-28, get over the other side of this ridge and take on another tank, because I can't beat him, and he gets me in the side for 377, taking me out of the game. 3 tanks left on each team, but there's only 13 or so seconds left, so it's game over. Okay, so we played a pretty good game, but not good enough, and we couldn't cap or eliminate the enemy in time. At first, when I saw this, I thought, how come I didn't get a Confederate badge? Because I did damage 6 tanks as well as killing one, but we damaged a T-28, but we didn't kill it, that's why. Okay, next screen, and we can see that we finished second on our team for XP. The Tiger 1, which played a really good game, actually finished on top for XP. And a couple of reasons for that. One, because he was a tier lower, so obviously he got more XP. But also, you can see he didn't do a lot of damage, 1,504. Well, when I say didn't do a lot, it's good damage for Tiger 1. But I think he did a lot of spotting. He was up the front from pretty early on and was spotting for the rest of us who were punishing the enemy. So, really well played game to that Tiger. And I think he didn't survive, unfortunately. The T-28 must have killed him as well. But anyway. So, next screen. Now, we fire 27 shots. The gun does fire fairly quickly for a heavy tank. 17 direct hits with 14 penetrations, which is pretty good. We did 3,899 damage, which is great. And 2,300 of that was from more than 300 meters. So you can see the gun is pretty effective at long range, especially at this tier. We received 9 hits, 6 of those penetrated, so we bounced 3, which is not too bad. We damaged 7 tanks, destroying 1 of those, with an income of 52,000, which is, you would say, really good income. But by the time we deducted 27,000 for the ammunition and the repair of the tank, we only ended up with 12,000. So, on a defeat, yeah, not great income. If it had been a win, it would have been pretty respectable, of course. And being a defeat, we didn't earn a great deal of XP. It was only 574. So I didn't have any higher tier games to show you because I simply didn't live long enough, because the armor's not good enough. And like I said, I didn't do a lot of sniping in the tank, unlike this game. Alright. Thank you for watching my review of the famous Tiger 2. If you liked the review, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.